calling in actually from the Mojaloop meeting, here in Rwanda. It's their 2023 P1221 OSS community meeting. It's going wonderfully. We've got some grantees and folks here, and it's great to hang out and learn from and with the Mojaloop community. We've started to work with People's Clearinghouse, which you'll hear a little bit more probably in the coming weeks, and we'll be presenting together tomorrow at the Mojaloop meeting with some of their updates. With Igalia, they've started, that's our contractors that are doing some development for us. They've started to put web monetization into Chromium. That'll kick off this month. Big news, this will kind of cross over with Adrian as well. ILF is going to be in South Africa this month. I think Brianna is actually on her way as we speak to Blockchain Africa, where she's going to speak. There is an ILF developer meetup in Cape Town. Brianna, Adrian, Carl, and others are going to be participating in a panel discussion. And Sabine is unveiling Rafiki V1 Alpha on stage for the first time. So super exciting. We'll bring you those updates. Hopefully there'll be some video and some other assets that we'll share out with all of you. Just also one quick note that we have a new Interledger Foundation ambassador. His name is Cyrus Schofield. He is a CODA, which is a child of deaf adults. And so he's part of our community ambassador outreach program. I actually think this is super exciting. He's going to be working on a bunch of stuff for us. One, there are words that don't exist that we use in FinTech or Interledger that don't exist in American Sign Language or any sign language. So he's going to be working with folks to come up with new signs for some of our nomenclature and technical wording, and then how we make our materials more accessible to a deaf community. So that is some cool things. New opportunities for the ecosystem. We've released our newest grant. It's an arts and culture grant, so it might not be as relevant for some of you here, but it might be relevant in some of your communities. The link is here in the notes. It's called Future Money. The exciting part here is we really want to have artists think about what is the financial inclusion world that we're actually trying to build together. You know, what are the artistic visions? What's that sort of speaking the things that we're working on technically out into the world, and sort of have this inspiration and building mix. So we're running that grant. We'll have 8 artists who will be in all kinds of different artistic mediums, kind of painting the world, so to speak, that we're hoping to build together. And they'll also all be showing up and presenting and hanging and otherwise performing their work at the ILP Summit in November. And to the community, we're looking for help to change the extension. So if anyone, the web monetization extension, so if anyone is interested, reach out to Alex or Vineel. We are looking for contributors to that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my ILF colleague, Max, who's going to go a little bit deeper dive into some of the new aspects of Rafiki. Take it away, Max.
Hey, everyone. So I'll be filling in for Sabina today. So some news on Rafiki side, as Chris mentioned, we are finished the development work on Rafiki. So it's working. The Postman collection is working. We can make all the APIs now. We are currently pushing forward with documentation, publishing all of our packages that we're using in the monorepo before a final quote unquote V1 stamp that Sabine will unveil. And so yeah, final stretches are making Rafiki production ready for adoption for wallets. So yeah, in terms of opportunities, right now you can go play around with all the APIs on Postman. They should all be working. Where any documentation that you may see is lacking, then definitely we can just point out to one of us, and we'll start and make sure that it's all documented. And yeah, if you ever need help experimenting with the APIs, let me or Sabina know, and we can help you with that. So final stretches of what we've been long waiting for. I'm going to pass it over to Vineel.
All right, thank you, Max. And next up, I think we have Adrian.
And unmute. Yeah, so some good news, some bad news. Good news, our beta testing went actually really well. We onboarded about 20 users in the US. We did some testing, thanks to anyone on the call who was one of those people. We were linking bank accounts, cards, sending money back and forward using payment pointers. All worked really nicely. Got some great feedback, so we made a few updates. Unfortunately, near the end of that period, we did start having some issues with our FI partner, and it turns out that they are having downstream issues with the platform they use and the bank that they deal with. It's super frustrating for us because we're now looking back at like how we got here, and it's been pretty much almost a year since we were ready to launch with our first FI partner. Anyway, we've decided to take a slightly different approach this time to avoid ourselves getting caught out again, and we're working directly with a licensed MSB rather than a bank platform. They've been great so far, and we're hoping to be registered as an agent of theirs in the next few weeks. That'll allow us to kick things back off again and continue testing and moving forward in the US. Can't say for certain exactly when that will be. So currently we've paused new onboarding and we've asked all the folks who tested to make sure they haven't left any money in their accounts. But I guess the upside is we're very confident about the product and the robustness of the product and how all of that works. The sort of integrations into card and ACH and those sort of rails have been challenging, and the KYC bits, but we're confident we can turn that stuff around with this new partner. In parallel, I've been evaluating a bunch of partners to get us live in EEA, so Europe, UK. Those are looking really positive, and we're hoping to have that in place in the next month or two. So we're kind of accelerating that, given that it's been such a frustrating journey in the US getting live. So both of those may go live pretty soon after one another. But yeah, as we've learned over the last 18 months, can't really make any promises. We're doing the best we can. That's all I can tell you. So yeah, that's it from our side. I think in terms of the product, a couple of interesting developments we've been working on, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you in the next month or two. Sort of high-level summary of those, we're really doubling down on Fynbos as a wallet that solve some real like pain points we see in the payments ecosystem, and doubling down on like web monetization and the link tags and linking websites with payees and those kinds of things. So we've been putting a lot of work and energy into pay verification as a feature of our wallet. Like, how do I send money to someone if all I know about them is their website, or all I know about them is their Twitter handle or something like that? How do we tie that back to a payment pointer or a wallet and actually send them money? And how do we verify that the account actually belongs to the person who owns that Twitter handle or that website? So we're loving the fact that the tie-up between the wallet and the website, like we've already defined that with web monetization. We're going to leverage that pretty heavily. So yeah, look forward to sharing more on that. It's still very much kind of in development, and obviously the team is split between working on those new features and the new integration work that's required. That's it from the Fynbos side.
All right, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, good and bad news, but I definitely think that it's mostly positive in terms of things actually moving forward. So it's still more exciting than it was 6 months ago, I would assume. At least for me. All right, we're going to go back to Max here. He's going to go on our deeper dive one into some of the open payment updates.
All right, I'm going to share. Well, if Adrian's going to go in 3 minutes, then maybe maybe there will be just Matt who can point out some issues with the open payment slides that I made. Okay, we can start.
They look cool. Sorry, unfortunately, yeah, we ran out of time. I can get a hold of the person that I'm calling now and see if we can just join a minute or two late. But go for it, Max.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Max. I work at the ILF, primarily on Rafiki, open payments, and today I'm going to go over open payments, maybe just a bit of a deeper dive. I know Sabina touched on it on open payments in her presentation at the summit, and so has Adrian, but I want to just basically give an overview, and then in addition, I'll just go over some of the node package that we have made to help interact with the open payments APIs. So when you go on, you sign up for a digital wallet, and now you have a payment pointer, right? We all love payment pointers. It's the email address for your wallet. So now, right, you want to be able to send money to friends. You want to pay online on the web shop. You want to tip creators, send money, stream money via web monetization, set up subscriptions. Say if it's a music subscription, you want to take out money out of your account every month. And maybe you just want to see how you spend your money, some sort of mint type of product. So often or almost always, this means giving some third-party access to your wallet. So we know the ILP is good at sending money between wallets, but how do you give access to your wallet to a third party? Your third party could be, right, your friend's digital wallet provider, web shop, subscription, right, payments tracker, etc. And how do those third parties know how to access your wallet, right? Each, say a payment platform wants to accept ILP payments, right? They might do it one way with some sort of interaction with the user. Some other web shop might do it other way. But right, how do we avoid a bad user experience? There's no, like, how do we find a common language? How do we avoid wallet providers reinventing the wheel with how they take money in and out of your wallet? So the answer to all of this is open payments. Open payments is API standard for account service entities, meaning digital wallets, mobile money providers, banks, etc., that allows third parties to securely access digital wallets for being able to view account information and initiate payments. So open payments is the common language for all the parties involved to understand how to request access, get access to accounts, facilitate payments. So when a wallet is open payments enabled, basically different parties know how to interact with it. That's kind of the crux of it. How does it work? This is very simplified, but just to make it understandable. So it's API exposes some resources protected by grants. And what that means is, like, what are the resources, right? We have payment pointers and connections, basically to support web monetization. These are two public resources. We also have incoming payments, quotes, outgoing payments. These that make up the open payments, right? And all these last three things, they basically require authorization to be able to interact with, right? Like, I don't want, my friend wallet just start making outgoing payments on my wallet and taking out money willy-nilly, right? That's not a very good thing. So this is why we have grants. That it's basically a set of rules that explains how a third party can access those resources, right? It's kind of simplified, but it's sort of a mechanism for protecting the resources that you have. So a grant could explain, like, which resources does somebody have access to? What are the limits for resources? Like, say, for example, I only want to be able to send $100 maximum outside of my wallet, and how it's also how a user can provide consent to have access to those resources. Going a little bit deeper into grants, we're using it's a new standard kind of successor to OAuth. It's called GNAP, and it allows us to have the structure of this fine-grained control over the access. It defines exactly how users would be able to give consent to access for those resources, and grants are issued by authorization service. They're basically like agents that keep the resources safe, along with access tokens. And so whenever you want to make a call to a resource, you have to provide a grant with an access token to get those things. As you can see, there's two subsystems, right, working here. There's the resource side of things, right, the actual things of your account, and there's the authorization side of things, right? It's the authorization part of Open Payments. So Open Payments is two of these things together. It's two open API specs, basically just contracts of how you can make requests and API calls. One of them, right, for resources, one of them for authorization related. And so essentially, as you can see, we have a documentation for this API, and you can see there on the left side, we have like these two subsections, right, the resources and the authorization. So it's been available, and yeah, you can go check it out. I'm going to bring back the faded shoe shop from Sabina's presentation, if you remember from the summit. Some of you remember from the summit. So say I have a Fynbos wallet. So hopefully when Fynbos releases in Europe, that'll be great, and I can use and sign up. And say ShoeShop has a wallet at PayPath in no way related to PayPal. I was really trying hard to come up with a name. So and I'm browsing the internet looking for some shoes. And a little Rafiki shout out here. So if a wallet wants to implement open payments, they can just run Rafiki, and Rafiki includes open payments by default. So you don't have to, reinvent the wheel, basically. So what would happen in order for me to get my shoes? So first of all, the shoe shop would create $50 on an incoming payment to their wallet, with a grant involved. I'm going to get that into a sec. Then ShoeShop was going to quote my wallet to see how much money it will cost for me to make that purchase, right? If Fynbos wants to add fees on top. And then the final step is, right, the ShoeShop needs to be able to put an outgoing payment on the wallet, so I can say that Fynbos can stream money to the PayPath wallet. And when this process happens, what will happen is when ShoeShop tries to make an outgoing payment, they have to get a grant. And so the grant will will redirect me to say, hey, do you consent ShoeShop to take out $52 out of your account? And so I click one of those big buttons on the screen, and I'll say, yes, I consent. And so ShoeShop will then create an outgoing payment on my wallet for $52 after Fynbos added the $2 fee. And basically the order is placed. The Fynbos wallet can now stream money to PayPath wallet over ILP. So this is basically, right, there's a few things going on there. There's incoming payments, quotes, outgoing payments, and it's basically shows how Open Payments is a common language to interact and send money. I'm going to pause here. I know that was pretty quick. Does anybody have any questions before I get into talking about the client?
Yeah, just very quickly, could you go back just a couple of slides, one or two slides, Max? So yeah, so this is confusing for me. The next one, I'm sorry, the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a bit confusing for me, because how is the shop creating an outgoing payment? Shouldn't that arrow start at the PayPath wallet, or what am I missing?
So this path is actually, and actually the client will explain exactly how that works, but ShoeShop is sort of the initiator, right? The PayPath can be like a PayPal, it could be a bank, right? They don't really know about how a ShoeShop, like how do you initiate that payment from a web shop, right? All that's PayPath that knows about is that it has, like that ShoeShop has an account on there. So we need at some point, right, in the ShoeShop's backend system, right, it's going to facilitate that, creating incoming payment, creating a quote, creating outgoing payment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then I would put an arrow which goes from shoe shop, which is initiating this physically, the person at the shoe store, to the PayPath wallet, and then from the PayPath wallet to the Fynbos wallet, right? Because
Right.
it's not the shoe shop doing the connection to the Fynbos wallet by no means.
Well, they're the ones that are making the request to the Fynbos wallet to create the outgoing payment. Right. So the PayPath. Sorry.
You mean the shop with intervention of their own wallet? You mean the shoe shop with the intervention of their own PayPath wallet?
No, it will include the intervention, and maybe the client will actually make a little more sense as to how that works. I can, and maybe it'll make sense a little bit.
Thanks so much.
But basically, we need some at some point, right? Because the shoe shop, the PayPath wallet, shoe shop will have the payment pointer at the PayPath wallet, and I'll have the payment pointer at the Fynbos wallet. Shoe shop will say at that payment pointer, create an incoming payment, and then at the Fynbos wallet, we'll say create an outgoing payment. Basically, there needs to have some sort of way to facilitate a payment. Maybe once I get into it, it'll be maybe the arrow will make a little more sense. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, sounds good. Right. So once the outgoing payment is created, you're basically streaming money between Fynbos wallet and the PayPath. That's using ILP under the hood. In terms of the no package, so in combination with this lives in the Rafiki monorepo, but essentially it's a Node.js TypeScript package. It contains both of these contracts, the resource server, authorization server. It exports TypeScript types from both of these specs, and also a client for making these open payments calls. So essentially, it's just an easier way to interact with open payments APIs. So this client, whenever it makes requests, it'll actually sign any request with the provided key using HTTP signatures under the hood. Basically, that's kind of abstracted into the client, so you don't have to worry about necessarily any low-level signing stuff. It validates responses that you get back from different wallets if basically that the response matches up to the open payment specs properly. And it's also documented with TS-doc. It's basically autocomplete for TypeScript, and it'll explain exactly what you need to give it when making these requests. And it also auto-generates documentation specifically for the client. And to explain how it will be used, maybe this will kind of explain Roberta's question. So in this setup, right, the client in our case, right, the third party that's trying to access my wallet is ShoeShop. So ShoeShop is the one who's going to be making requests with the client to facilitate a payment between my account that it wants to have access to and its own account. So it's essentially the ShoeShop's backend, for example, their backend ordering system, right? Whenever you want to make a purchase, what it will do is essentially you can create a client, what's called an authenticated client from this package, providing its own payment pointer, right? And its key that it has added to its payment pointer when it signed up at the PayPath account. So basically saying whenever the client is making requests, we can always confirm that it's the actual ShoeShop that's making those requests to any other payment pointer, because it has this key, and we can always validate that the key matches up to where it belongs in on the payment pointer. So then this is a bit more, I would say, like, it's verbose, right? ShoeShop probably already knows about its payment pointer, but in any case, is going to grab its public information. It's also going to grab my information that it needs. Right? This is all happening on the ShoeShop's backend system. Then the ShoeShop is going to I'm saying shoe shop so many times. So it's going to make a call to its wallet. It's going to ask, since it wants to create an incoming payment on its own account, it needs to grab a grant to do so. So it's going to, and this is maybe if it already has a grant, it doesn't need to do that. But for the case of being just explicit, it gets an incoming payment grant. It'll say, hey, I want to create and read an incoming payment on its own wallet. I'm going to create this payment for $50 US. As you can see, they're in the incoming amount. And so once that's happened, an incoming payment has been created on the shoe shop wallet. So now we can basically prepare it for me to send money into that incoming payment. What will happen after is it's going to get a quote on sorry, I'm reading comments, but yes, shoe shop. So then it needs to have a grant, right? Because we need a grant to access any resources. It's going to ask for a grant to create a quote on my payment pointer, right? Once it's done so, it can create a quote. It can create a quote with my payment pointer that will say the exact amount that I will need to send in order to fulfill the payment. So in this case, Fynbos will take the $52 to pay for my $50 fee. So it's going to make a 2% $2 fee. And the receiver of this quote is the incoming payment that we created initially in the first step, shoe shops. So then we're sort of in the final stretches of the payment. We want to create an outgoing payment. In order to do that, right, we need another grant. So we're going to create a pending outgoing payment grant for, as you can see there, there's the limits. So we can, what this is telling to my wallet, saying, shoe shop, I want to make I want to create an outgoing payment only up to this amount. So this is kind of the flexibility we have with these grants. So once this happens, and once the user consents, whatever that may be, we're going to redirect them back to the complete payment their URL. And so once we make this grant, it's actually going to tell us the link where we need to tell the user to send, where we need to redirect the user to basically sign off on the purchase. So in this case, it's going to be, I know, fynbos.me/some URL. Maybe it's just me clicking yes, a yes button on the URL, or it takes me to, I'm doing it on my phone, and I can use Touch ID, for example, to confirm that payment. Right, like this is kind of what's happening, right? Now I'm consenting, yes, I consent to make this payment. And finally, the final step, now that shoe shop has the permissions, let's say, to make the request, is going to make an outgoing payment on my account for that specific quote. And that's basically how you can use the client to facilitate a payment. Roberto, does that help somewhat explain how that works, if you're still on the call?
Yeah, absolutely. This is very well explained. It's very clear. Thanks so much. I still have a doubt, which is maybe more a commercial doubt, because, well, I mean, we're using the example of a shoe shop, right? I don't know if the shoe shop will have an internal system that will allow it to interact in the way we're wanting it to do, right? I mean, the easiest path would be to make a wallet-to-wallet connection all the time, so that it can be very easily adopted by all people, rather than requiring an intermediating system on the shoe shop side. But I mean, that's another thing, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, it's just an example. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you. So it's definitely like, I don't know, maybe an example could be like a Shopify, right? If you want to have a Shopify plugin, it can be the one that orchestrated this payment. all it is, ShoeShop in this case is just a third party with its own wallet. That's all basically what it can do. And for example, say if it's, say you want to see a breakdown of all your recent purchases, you go on a website, website is acting at the client, and it just asks for a grant. Hey, can I view all your incoming payments? And then you say yes, and then here is a breakdown of all your incoming payments. So in that case, it would just use the Open Payments client to effectively provide all that information. So all it is just at some point you need access to your wallet, and Open Payments is the thing to do. So there's some resources here. I'll put those in the documentation, but essentially, yeah, we're still working a lot on the documentation, so there'll be a lot of updates to that, including the client. We'll be publishing the client package. And then this Sabine's and Adrian's talks from the summit go into Open Payments a little bit, and also GNAP. So that would be helpful if you hadn't seen or didn't attend, and also documentation for GNAP. I'm going to take any final questions if there's any.
Any other questions? Feel free to just open your mic. You don't have to raise a hand or chat it, write it out in chat. But any other questions for Max? That was pretty exciting. Some big updates.
I hope that wasn't too fast, but yeah, that's effectively, yeah. Open Payments is kind of the ILF vision. So.
Have you guys built a client or like an XApp through the Sum wallet or anything like this from testing?
Actually, so testnet will be is a great use case for the client where they can use that inside their application. Also, Rafiki uses the client to make some internal calls. So when you ever want to make like inter-Rafiki calls, it will use the client under the hood. And potentially there's, yeah, like, yeah, I guess probably testnet will probably be the first place that will end up using it as an example of what it can do.
I'm going to break in here real quick. We were supposed to have the Sum Assembly presentation, but because of our snafu at the beginning, I just don't feel like it's right to let them have to rush through what is a pretty exciting update for their project in 10 minutes. So I've spoken with that team in the background, and we will put them on for next week so they don't feel like they've got to rush. If anyone wants to contact me, they have some slides that I'm sure they'd be willing to share if you really wanted to see some part of it right now, or over the next couple of days. That's not, it's not state secrets. So I'm sure that they'll, and we will be happy to share that with you. But in terms of giving them their full time, we are going to put them on to the next call because I just don't feel right letting them have to rush through that in 9 minutes. It's not right for our mistake. So again, please check out I'll paste it again here in a second, the link to the public notes doc. Going forward, we're going to work really hard to get all the details there. It'll be one link always. So it's just one-stop shopping. And we're going to work with people that are presenting to get their information in before so that it's you have an idea of what they're going to talk about. Maybe you have better questions. Maybe you have more engagement. You can ask comments in and interact in the document, as well as a way to get more community updates and a little bit more spontaneity in the call. Also, I know that not everyone's always comfortable talking on a video or live, and sometimes having multiple ways that people can engage means that we get better interaction throughout. So we'll be doing that going forward. But I'll give you the 8 minutes back here. Again, apologies for the snafu at the beginning. And I'm sure we're all looking forward to hearing some assembly in the next call. Thank you, everyone who presented.